Hello everyone, I hope you're doing good and staying safe. Welcome to another interesting tutorial on Introduction to SQL Syntax by SimpliCode. Learning a new programming language and its syntax can be quite difficult sometimes, whereas SQL syntax is very simple to learn and easy to execute as well. More on that soon, but before we get started, if you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe to our channel SimpliCode to stay updated with all the latest tech content. Also, hit that bell icon to never miss an update from us. So without any further delay, let's get started with today's topic. Firstly, let us discuss the agenda for today's session. We'll start the tutorial by understanding what SQL syntax is and why we use it. Next, we'll understand what are SQL expressions and SQL statements. Then, we'll discuss about SQL data types, followed by SQL operators. Next, we'll go through SQL commands and its types. After that, we'll discuss the syntax of DDL commands, followed by DML commands, and finally we'll have a look at the syntax of DCL commands as well. What is SQL syntax? Just like other programming languages, SQL follows a unique set of rules and guidelines called syntax. We use simple English words in the SQL syntax in order to execute various queries. SQL syntax is by default case insensitive. That means the system allows the user to write the queries in both uppercase as well as lowercase. But if you're working with MySQL Server, then you need to give table names exactly as they exist in the database. We know that RDBMS is the basis for all modern database systems, including SQL, which manages and performs various operations on the tables like insert, update, modify, and delete. So in order to retrieve the data stored in the database, it is necessary to learn SQL syntax first. Before we move ahead with the topic, if you want to learn more about the basics of DBMS and SQL, make sure you check out our previous playlist videos on Introduction to DBMS and SQL on our channel. We'll leave the link in the description below. SQL expressions. SQL expression is a combination of one or more keywords and values, operators, data types, and other SQL functions. These SQL expressions are like a formula, which are similar to mathematical formulas which we generally use to solve a problem, and in this case they're written in a query language using a proper syntax. SQL statement. SQL statements are basically collection of SQL expressions. For example, let us consider an employee table to understand it in a better way. The table is having attributes like employee ID, name, age, city, and salary. Now, if I want to fetch the record of all the employees and their IDs, I'll write a simple SQL query. That is, select ID, name from employee. Here, select is the database object or the keyword that is used. ID and name are the columns from employee. Employee is the name of the table. When I execute this query, this will be the output. It will display the ID and name of the employee. Let us look at another query. Now I want to display the salary of employees having more than 30,000. For that, I am using the query as select ID, name from employee where salary is greater than 30,000. Here, where is the conditional statement that I am using, or it is a SQL clause. Also, we are using greater than symbol, which is an SQL operator. So with the help of SQL statements, we can fetch the records of all the information from SQL tables. SQL data types. SQL data type specifies which type of values is stored in the database tables. SQL data types are mainly classified into three categories. The first one is numeric. Numerical data refers to the data that is in the form of numbers. In numerical data type, we have different types as well. For example, int. Int holds values of integers and whole numbers without any decimal point. Further, they are again divided into small int and big int also. The difference between them is the size and range of the value they can store and operate. Bit. Bit data type is an integer data type that can only take values of 0, 1 or any null value. SQL optimizes storage of bit columns. If a table has 8 or fewer bit columns, SQL stores them as 1 byte. If a table has 9 or up to 16 bit columns, SQL stores them as 2 bytes and so on. Float. Float stores the numbers having decimal values. Depending upon the number of digits after the decimal point, SQL gives the size accordingly in its range. Boolean. It is used to specify Boolean values, that is true and false. 0 is considered as false and non-zero values are considered as true. String data type. String data types allows us to store fixed or variable character values. They are again further divided into various types. The first one is char. Char is used to specify a fixed length string that can contain numbers, letters and special characters. Its size can be 0 to 255 characters. Varchar. Varchar is similar to char, but it stores variable length strings, and size of varchar is also more than the char data type with a range of 0 to almost 60,000 characters. So if you are storing strings with a widely variable length such as name, address, email ID, then we have to use varchar. Text. Text data type stores any kind of text data. It can hold string value that can contain maximum length of 255 characters. Datetime. In SQL, datetime data type is used for storing values that can contain both date as well as time. The first one is date. It is used to specify date format, that is year, month, date. In this data type, we can store only the value of date. And the next one is datetime. It is used to specify the combination of both date and time. The format is year, month, date, hours, minutes and seconds. For instance, I have taken the example as 2022 3, that is the month, 20 is the date, 23 hours, 59 is the minutes and 59 is the seconds. Timestamp. It is also similar to datetime data type. The format specification is also the same as well. The only difference is it has less range of values to store. It is also used to convert current time into various time zones like UTC, GMT, etc. We also have XML and JSON data types which are not that significant and we do not use as frequently as other data types in SQL. SQL operators. SQL operators are used to specify certain conditions in an SQL statement. SQL operators are broadly classified into 5 categories. The first one is arithmetic. Arithmetic operators perform mathematical operation on numerical data on the SQL tables. This operation performs addition, subtraction, multiplication and division operations on the numerical operands. The next one is logical. The logical operators in SQL perform Boolean operations, which gives two results, either true or false. These operators provide true value if both operands match the logical condition. Some logical operators are AND, NOT, OR, between, etc. Comparison. The comparison operator is in SQL compares two different data in the SQL tables and checks whether they are same, greater or lesser. The SQL comparison operator are used with a conditional clause where in the SQL queries. Equal to is highly used comparison operator in SQL. Bitwise. Bitwise operators perform bit manipulations between two expressions of any integer data type category. Bitwise operators convert two integer values to binary bits and perform AND, OR NOT operation on each bit, which finally gives the required result. Final one is set. The set operators in SQL combine a similar type of data from two or more SQL database tables. Basically, it merges the result which is extracted from two or more SQL queries into a single result. SQL union, intersect and minus operators are some of the examples of set operations. SQL commands. We know that SQL commands are broadly classified into 4 types. The first one is data definition language, DDL. DDL allows the user to define the table and make changes to its overall structure. Commands that are used in DDL are create. It is used to create a new table. Alter. It is used to modify the existing table by adding new attributes. Drop. It is used to delete the whole table and the data stored in it. Truncate. It is used to delete the rows in a table. Now that we have got the idea and understanding of various operators, data types and commands, let us look at the syntax of all these commands. The first one is SQL create statement, perhaps one of the most important and used SQL statement. because if you want to create a table, you have to first name the table and then specify the columns and the columns data types. So let us look at the syntax of create statements. The syntax is followed as create table, which is the keyword that is used, followed by table name that you want to create, and within the parenthesis you have to mention the column, give space, and add the data type. So in this way you can add n number of columns and mention the data types, but make sure guys you have to give the appropriate data type for the columns that you have taken, because there might be a chance, there might be an instance where you have given the column such as age and you are mentioning data type as character char, which is basically a mismatch. The computer doesn't accept it because generally age is basically a numerical value, but you are mentioning char, but it should ideally be int to store the data. So just keep an eye on it when you are creating new tables. So let us now look at an example of create statement. So I want to create a table name employee. For that I am writing as create table space employee, and within the parenthesis I am mentioning employee ID as my first column, space int, which is the data type, and I am giving name varchar, address varchar, close the parenthesis and put a semicolon. And if you execute this statement, this will be the following result. It will display the table with different columns, with the first column as employee ID, the second column as name, and the third column as address. Easy, right? The next one is SQL alter table. The SQL alter statement is basically used to add, modify, or even delete certain columns from the existing table. Let us look at the syntax of SQL alter command. So the SQL alter command is alter table space table name that you have to mention, add, and within the parenthesis you have to mention the column and the data type. Similarly, you can add n number of data types as per your requirement. Let us now look at one of the example. Now I wanted to add the date of birth of the employee in a new column. For that I'll write as alter table employee add, and within the parenthesis date of birth, and I'll mention the data type as well, which is the date. And if you execute this, it will show the result like this. It will add another column, date of birth, in the already existing table. Now due to certain reasons, if you want to drop or delete the date of birth column, for that we have to write syntax as alter table, give the employee table name, drop column, which is the keyword we use, and date of birth. So this will be the final output when you execute the query. It will completely drop the date of birth from the table. Next we'll look at SQL drop statement. SQL drop statement basically removes all the data and it changes the overall structure of the table by deleting the records in the table. So let us look at the syntax. The syntax followed is a drop table followed by the table name that we want to create. Let us look one of the example. The syntax followed is a drop table employee, and when I execute this, it will show an error stating that table employee does not exist, which means you have completely deleted all the records from the employee table. SQL truncate statement. Let us look at the SQL truncate statement syntax. The syntax is truncate table, which is the keyword that is used, and we have to specify the table name. For example, if you want to truncate the values in employee table, we have to write truncate table employee. So this will be the output where it shows null, that is there are no values in the employee table, and you can further add values of your own choice. Let us now look at data manipulation language. Data manipulation language, or DML, is used to access and manipulate data tables. Commands that are used in DML are insert. It is used to insert new values into the table. Select. It is used to extract data from the tables. Update. It is used to update values in the already existing table. Delete. Unlike the drop command, delete command is used to delete a specific row or all the rows in the table. Let us first look at the SQL insert statement. The syntax followed in SQL insert statement is insert into, which is the keyword that we use, space, table name that we have created, values, and inside the parenthesis you have to mention the values. There is also another method to insert the values where we specify the column name as well as the values. Now if you execute this, but before executing, we'll take an example. We are creating a table student and we are inserting values such as roll number, name, age, and city. So the roll number is given as 1, the name is given as Rohan, the age is given as 22, and the city is given as Hyderabad for the first row. Similarly, we'll do the same for the next 2 rows as well. And if you execute this query, this will be the final output where you'll have 4 different columns having the first column as roll number, the next one having name, age, city, with the roll numbers as 1 Rohan, 22 Hyderabad, and the second row consists of the roll number 2 Anjana, age being 20, and the city Bangalore, and the third one is roll number 3, the name is Kaushal, age 21, and the city is Mumbai. SQL select statement. Let us now look at the syntax of SQL select statement. The syntax is followed as select column 1, column 2, and a number of columns from the table name. And if you want to display all the names from the table, you have to use asterisk, that is select star from table name. Let us look at the example. So I want to display the roll number, name, age from the student table. For that, I'll write select roll number, comma, name, comma, age from the table, that is student. And if I execute this, it will only display roll number, name, age of the students, and it will not display the city of the students. And if you want to display even the city to which they belong, we have to write select star from student. Then it will display even the city in the table. SQL select condition statement. Consider employee table with having ID, name, age, city, and salary. And if you want to specifically display the employee's name who live in city New Delhi, you have to write select star from employee where city is equals to New Delhi. Here we are applying a condition that is where, which is a SQL clause, and we are using an operator as well, which is equal to. And if you execute this statement, it will show this as output where you will find the ID of Alok Singh Ravi Patel, who belong to the city New Delhi. SQL update statement. It is used to update already existing values in the statement. For example, if you consider the syntax, it is followed as update space table name that you have created, set column name equals to new value, that is the updated value that you want to keep into the new table, and you have to keep a condition as well, that is where condition. Let us look at an example. Now if I want to update the student table, and if I want to insert if I want to change the city of the roll number 3, that is Kaushal's city, I'll write as update student set city equals to Chennai where roll number is equals to 3, and when you execute this, it will show like this. So the city which is Mumbai has been changed into Chennai. SQL delete statement. SQL delete statement is used to delete a specific row or even all the rows from the table. The syntax is delete from table name. For example, if you want to delete all the records from the student table, we will write it as delete from student semicolon. So this will be the output. It will only display the column names and the data inside it will be completely erased. And if you want to delete only a certain number of rows, we have to use query as delete from student where roll number is equals to 1, and when you execute this query, it will show like this. It will completely erase the records of the roll number 1 student. And the final one is data control language or DCL. DCL is responsible for maintaining the security, which gives control access and permissions of the database. Commands that come under DCL are grant. It is used to grant the permission to user to access the database. Revoke. It is used to cancel or take back the permissions that were earlier granted. Let us now look at SQL grant statement. Sometimes user is restricted from creating or making any changes within the table. But with the help of grant statement, we can give privilege to the user to create or modify the records in the table. Let us now look at the syntax of SQL grant statement. It is followed as grant space privilege list. That is basically the set of commands that you are giving access or permission to the user to perform certain operations on the table that you have created. To user, we have to mention the username. Example, grant insert select on employee to Rahul. That means Rahul is able to access the employee table and can perform commands such as insert and select. SQL revoke statement. SQL revoke statement is basically the opposite of grant statement. It is used to take back the permissions that were earlier granted. The syntax is also similar to the grant statement. Instead of grant keyword, you have to replace it by revoke. Let us look at the example. Revoke insert on employee from Rahul. That means Rahul is no longer able to insert new values into the employee table. With that, we have come to the end of today's session. If you want to explore and learn more about SQL commands and various operations, functions used in SQL tables, we have a dedicated video, SQL Full Course 2022 for beginners, on our channel. Make sure you go through it and we'll leave the link in the description as well. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you have found this tutorial helpful and informative, please be kind enough to leave us a like. And if you have any further questions on any of the topics covered in the tutorial, feel free to let us know in the comment section below, and a team of experts will be more than happy to assist you and help resolve all your queries. Until next time, stay safe and keep coding.